Please be advised that Little Miss Recap contains adult language.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is September 8th, 2022, and we are interrupting regular programming to bring you breaking news. It is with deep sadness that Buckingham Palace has announced Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, the longest reigning monarch in Commonwealth history, has died at the age of 96. She is the only queen most of us have ever known, so this is a monumental loss for not only the UK, but Canada and the world. You can see there the Union Jack on top of Buckingham Palace at half-mast on what is a deeply sad day, not only for the Commonwealth, but the entire world.
Hi everyone, welcome to Little Miss Recap, the podcast where we talk royals, wills, teen angst, hottie Charles as portrayed by Dominic West only.
Parental remarriage, everything we deal with that, abdication, all of the things that you and I are facing daily.
Daily challenges. Abdication comes up daily for me. Because I sometimes as a mom of teenage daughters, sometimes I want to abdicate and just be like, I'm out.
Y'all figure this out on your own. Peace out. I'm going to the spa.
I have a couple questions for you up front.
Okay.
One is, I want to say today's our last episode of The Crown, season 6.
I know.
I enjoyed it so much that I have a proposal for you.
Oh.
I think we should watch The Queen, Peter Morgan's movie that he made.
Totally, I'd do a review of that. I watched the movie years ago.
Yeah, and talk
I'll
about
absolutely watch it. Yep.
I think it'd be interesting to talk about in context to the series.
How he portrays Elizabeth then and now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And is Harry bartending at 12? Is Will's all horned up? What's going on? What's going on over there?
Now, to be fair, the Queen really only takes place over about a week.
Okay.
Because it really is just Diana's death is the whole plot of the movie.
Yeah.
How the Queen.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. It'll be interesting though to see it.
For sure.
So that's my proposal. Okay. Few announcements for the podcast up front. Number 1.
Yes.
I am reading my book on ladies of a certain age.
Amy, I know you are nervous about this. I know you felt like it was cringe. I know
I'm a nervous wreck about it.
A mess about it. It was beautiful. It was so fun to hear you read your own work and then talk about what was going on. Really interesting to hear Beverly D'Onofrio's take on it.
Feedback.
And I said this to you yesterday, and I'll say it on mic. You write about the experience of being a fat person in a way that I've never read someone write about it.
Thank you.
In
I hope that's a good thing.
Yes, in such a true way. The other person I've always thought writes really beautifully about being a fat person in the world is Lindy West.
Yes.
As a memoirist. There are other people who write really good fat characters.
I think Aubrey Gordon
does as well.
Gordon does as well. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not easy to do because it can go into hyperbole so quickly.
Yes.
And it can turn into a joke because, like you said, really making fun of fat people is the last socially acceptable thing we can do to make fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm doing that. I can't say how often they're going to come out, but you're going to get at least one a month. But sometimes I think you're going to get like 2.
Good. I can't wait.
So that's coming. And what I'm going to do is, like Amanda said, like I did the prologue and then I'm going to talk about, let me tell you something. I was telling Steph this last night. Sometimes in my life, I feel disconnected from my writing and I'm at one of those places.
Okay.
This is connecting me again to my writing in a way that feels really good for me. Like
good.
It is a balm for my soul when I'm connected to that part of me.
And you write so much, but it's for your professional life, not the writing that Amy Archer writer is moved to do.
Correct. So yeah, it's been fun. It was scary. Guys, you haven't heard anything yet. The book gets real vulnerable, real personal. And I'll be sharing like the stories behind it and what's going on. So
That's
if
what
you
I'd be
want to hear
interested in.
that, that is on Patreon and it's at our $12 tier. And I think it could be fun. I think it
Mhm.
could be fun. And, keeping it at the $12 tiers just because it's really a vulnerable thing for me. So you
Mhm.
can come at me about anything else, but I
Be
really want
nice
to
about
keep that
this.
my little safe space.
Yes, understood. Understood.
Second of all, we are doing, I just want to remind everybody the shows that we're doing. So on Patreon, we're doing Sister Wives Rewatch. We did a video for our first one, which was a
Yeah.
lot of fun. Hopefully you saw the video. Hopefully you heard the Manosphere call in.
I had no idea that was coming. I
I
hope we hear
worked
from
on
the
that for like,
Manosphere often. I think they're
I-
gonna be helpful for our rewatch.
if you knew the amount of effort I put into that,
Mm,
I should be ashamed of myself. Yeah.
love it.
Um, and we are doing Prison Brides, which,
Mhm.
I hope is going to heat up soon. I think it
Yeah,
might.
it will.
And we are doing, what else are you and I doing? Help me. I'm brain dead. Single Life.
Single Life.
Single Life. Single Life. Yes.
We are also doing documentaries as they come. I
Mm-hmm.
started American Nightmare.
I don't
Not
know if we're
finished
going to
yet.
get to do that,
Okay.
but we might need to talk about it at some point.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
you go from rage to,
Okay. I'm gonna go
there's,
on a journey.
yeah, you're going to go on a journey with
Right
that
now, I'm
one.
just annoyed with him, and I feel like something's real sus because the way he is behaving is really
Mm.
weird.
He's hot.
He's not a bad-looking guy at
I'm
all,
just gonna put that out there.
and Denise is gorgeous.
She's gorgeous. He's gorgeous. It's pretty white people in
It is
California.
it is pretty
Mhm,
white people living a pretty white
mhm,
life.
mhm, mhm. Um, just hang in there. It's a journey.
Okay. Okay,
Okay.
I'm looking forward to it.
There was something else I wanted to talk to you about. Oh, up front. At the end of this episode, depending on how long we go, this might
Okay.
not be the appropriate place
Okay.
for it. At some point, either here or Single Life, we need to have a Lalu corner. So
Oh,
maybe,
okay.
maybe Single Life. We'll see. If
Yeah.
it's not here, guys, listen to our Single Life. It'll be on there. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna need to do a little bit of a Lalu rewatch. I may have fallen asleep towards the end.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So,
Just
okay.
shimmer down over there. Okay.
Yes, but when it says shimmer down, I
Mhm.
texted you and I'm like, I'm ready for you to embrace shimmer down. And you were like,
Mhm.
what? I'm like, just it'll
Shimmer
become
down now.
clear.
Mhm. Mhm. All right, take us away. The Crown season 6 episode 10. What is the name of it?
Sleep, dearie, sleep.
Sleep, Dearie Sleep. Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so we begin with morning at what I believe to be Balmoral because there are bagpipes happening.
Mhm.
And actually, no, Charles and Camilla are not in Balmoral, but the Queen is. Anywho,
Okay.
so Charles wakes up. We see foxes on the lawn. It's all of the idyllic stuff that they do beautifully here.
Mhm.
Charles sighs deeply and then climbs up on the bed and wakes Camilla up. And I said, "Can I get Dominic West to wake me up and
Are
call
you
me
having
darling?"
testimony?
I might be having a testimony.
What is it called? Yeah,
A
testimony, right?
testimony, yeah.
Yeah.
I might
Okay.
be having a testimony that Dominic West and I belong together. It could be
Okay. All right.
happening.
Well, I support that.
We see Elizabeth waking up to bagpipes, and then we have the Queen's dresser.
Mhm.
Now, I always knew that like someone dressed the Queen every day and got her
Mhm.
clothes
Sure.
ready. I didn't know they made all the decisions of what she was going to wear that day.
I need a dresser. Can we talk about it?
I could use a dresser.
I 100% need somebody to be like, "Those old navy leggings, they're not
Are not
working anymore. We need to upgrade you to Kohl's."
something a
Yeah.
little better.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So the Queen is preparing Elizabeth's clothes for the day. And she's telling Elizabeth like what her plans are, and this is why I've chosen the things that you're wearing. We
Mhm.
also note that Elizabeth has corns. She's like a
Yes.
little corn pad on her
Yes.
foot.
Yep, as you do.
And the dresser says this outfit works well for after her breakfast with the Duke of Edinburgh, Lord Chamberlain, and the Duke of Norfolk. And Elizabeth's like, why do we have to do this?
Mhm.
And she's like, did we ever get like the agenda for this conversation? Is it in the meeting invite? Like,
What's
what are
going
we
on?
doing here?
Mhm.
No one knows
Could this
what
be an
she's walking.
email? Could this be an
Could this,
email?
could this be an email or a Slack message? We need a whole meeting. And so we see Charles and Camilla having breakfast. And we're kind of getting a timestamp on this. I find it interesting the times that they pull in like national events to get this time of it.
Mhm.
Because we're
Mhm.
talking about the IAEA inspectors going into Iraq and all
Mhm.
of that situation. and Charles asks Camilla to marry him. But it isn't a proposal because he can't do that without his mommy's permission.
Mummies.
Mummies.
Yes.
But he wants nothing more than for her to be his wife. And Camilla says that's a complete disaster and smiles. And I'm not sure if she's thinking that asking your mother is a complete disaster, if what's going on in Iraq is a complete disaster.
Is it
What's the
all a
disaster? Is it
disaster?
all a disaster? But she's like, that's a complete disaster, and just smiles. And then we get Elizabeth walking into a room full of men, including Philip. And they say it's time for her to start planning Operation London Bridge, which we know is the code name for her funeral. Code name for her funeral. So Elizabeth asks if this is necessary. She just got a clean bill of health, and Philip goes, almost 80.
Yeah.
And then she's like, well, then let's start with the Duke of Edinburgh's because he's older than me, and statistically men die first. So let's start with him.
Let's go with him.
Let's go with him first. And then he's like, yeah, that's true. And I've been working on it for years.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, why doesn't she know that?
So
I
I'm
want to
gonna
know a lot more about their marriage.
I'm gonna weigh in occasionally because I listened to my new favorite podcast, which is the Crown Factor Fiction.
Oh, good.
So I'll weigh in occasionally with what I remember. You know, my memory's not real good.
Right.
But one of the things that the guy was talking about is that Philip was obsessed with his funeral and did have the Jeep turned into a hearse or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
And it was really awesome.
Range Rover. Yeah. Land Rover,
the Range
whatever
Rover,
it is.
thank you. Yeah.
I put Jeep too in my notes. And then
I think it's a Land Rover. I think you're right.
Yeah. Well, at the end, she's like, you want to be buried in a Land Rover. And yeah. And he says it's true that they've been working on it for years, and it's called Operation Fourth Bridge. We remember the Queen Mum was Operation Tay Bridge, which, by the way,
I remember because Wills was getting his sexy on with
he was
Kate
about to bang Kate and got interrupted by Operation Tay Bridge.
Operation Tay Bridge, known forever now as Operation Cockblock.
I do want to make a correction because I realized, and I know I think I corrected it on Single Life. I called Elizabeth's mother Mary. Elizabeth's mother was actually also Elizabeth.
Elizabeth, yes. Yeah. Okay.
I
wouldn't have caught that. It went right past me, sailing right past me.
Yep, I got it.
Yeah,
I got it. I realized after I said it and I listened to the recording, I was like, shit, that's not actually her name. So
I'll be recording with Meredith Constant from Hey Bunky.
Oh,
we're going to be filling in on Hey Bunky soon.
Okay.
First week of February, I think. So I'm going to be talking to her a little bit about the Royals up front, I'm sure. And I'm going to ask her, was Harry bartending at 12? Was Wills all horned up? Is Wills a narc? What's going on here? Give me the dynamic, because that's all I care about is the dynamic between these brothers.
That, and I want to know what's wrong with Kate Middleton and why she needs to be in the hospital for 2 weeks.
They talked about that in this last episode.
I know, I listened, but they don't have an answer either. No one has an answer.
Well, maybe I can make up some shit, and then we can see if Meredith can deny or confirm.
My dad even last night was like, why is she in the hospital for 2 weeks? I'm like, what could be happening that you're in the hospital for 2 weeks? He's like, very little anymore.
Yeah.
So who knows? Anyway, let's see. And he says he's been working on it for years and he finds it stimulating, and perhaps Elizabeth will as well. And they ask her for permission to begin this work. And so they walk into this new room, which is a huge template for the service. It is a diorama thing.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. It tickled my fancy. I love shit like this.
I love shit like this too.
Like little architecture models and stuff. Yes. I love that.
And I love the fact that like this whole thing got set up without any of her knowledge. So she walks into this room and she's like, oh, this is what my funeral will look like. Great.
Well, we all know I've been planning my funeral for
we've got
6 months now.
You don't have to plan it anymore. We know what it is. We've got the iPad. We've got the cup. We're fine.
We've got Stephanie throwing my ashes onto a whale.
Yeah.
It's interesting. There'll be
a lot happening. Stephanie and I will be very busy. I really feel like the way that this will pan out is Stephanie will be responsible more for your remains and what happens there. I will be more responsible for the memorial.
Oh, yes. Yep.
It's too much for one person.
Yes.
It's really too much for one person.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's modeled after her father's funeral, which makes sense. And the last time they did one of these. And there's just these like cute little toy soldiers, and they're talking about how all the pomp and circumstance that will happen,
Yep.
how everyone will march. And you can see she's moved by this and is uncomfortable. She's like looking at this like,
Yeah. I mean, you're facing your own mortality.
mortality.
Yeah.
And I just noticed that like the sound engineering was great here because it's like the music that you hear throughout the crown, it's that kind of music, but you can also like occasionally as she's going past the soldiers, you hear like the the bump 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 of
Yes, I
soldiers
agree. I thought
marching.
that was really cool.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I thought they did a really beautiful job with that. And
And
the
then
horses making noise.
the voices behind her are kind of fading in and out, like, you don't
Right.
really know what they're saying, but then sometimes you do, and you know
And you
what I
don't
mean?
know like when is she in that moment where she's in it versus is she
Yes.
watching it. It
Yes.
was really good. And that's basically how we move into the credits. So,
Mhm.
and then we go to Charles going into Buckingham Palace in a car, and things are not going well for Tony Blair.
No. No.
It is not
Things were
fun
not
being.
going well for any of the people in power around
Mm-mm.
this Iraq situation at this
No,
time.
W wasn't doing
Mm-mm.
well either.
No,
It
no,
was
no, no,
not
no.
good. This whole Iraq thing, which should have taken 10 minutes in all of their estimations, has gone
Mhm.
on a lot longer than they
Yes.
think it should. This was not the quick thing that Kosovo was.
No,
This
no.
was much
This was a
larger,
disaster.
a disaster.
Mhm.
And for the episode couple episodes ago where Elizabeth was worried about King Tony, I don't think we have to worry about King Tony
Nope.
anymore.
Nope.
Tons of protesters. Car comes out of Buckingham Palace. He asks what's going on. And the driver said the prime minister is coming out, and people are like pounding on his car, calling him a war criminal, tons of signs. This is not good. And Charles says that when Blair came to power, this is just kind of a voiceover, people were dancing in the streets, and now they want to impeach him for crimes and misdemeanors. And they are calling him B. Liar instead of
Mm.
Blair.
Mhm.
And once again, you're reminded that the career of a prime minister is nasty, brutish, and short.
Yeah.
Elizabeth and Charles are talking. Charles says to Elizabeth that Blair has no plans to step down. And that's the thing. When people get a taste of being on top, they never want to give it up.
It was pretty
That's,
passive aggressive.
yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Now, the guy that I was listening to before we get into this whole narrative, the guy
Yeah.
that I was listening to who, calls himself a royal expert and he has been involved with the royal family for a long time. It's a podcast called The Crown Fact or Fiction, guys. He claims that this was kind of Peter Morgan's invention, that Charles was not obsessed with getting power and
Mm,
having his mother step down, could care less, didn't want it to happen, didn't want
okay.
the job. So, and I could
Interesting.
see that. I could see
I can
that.
see that too.
Mhm.
We've all had this story, I think, in the US of like thinking that Charles is, chomping at the bit for
Mhm.
this,
Mhm.
champing at I never know what it's supposed to
It's
be.
champing.
It's champing, but I always thought it was
Mhm.
chomping.
Yes.
Um, at the bit for his mother to step down, and
Yeah.
that's the American story.
Yeah.
Elizabeth says she isn't sure she's sure this isn't why he's come to talk to her today. Or he's
Mhm.
not here to chat about Tony
Yeah.
Blair.
Yeah.
And he says no, he's come to make a request he wishes he'd made 30 years ago, to
Mhm.
ask her blessing to marry Camilla. And he says this should not be a surprise to you because she looks taken aback. And he says they have been in love for 30 years. And over those 30 years, Camilla has been nothing short of heroic. And Elizabeth says that being heroic would have been ending her relationship with him when he married Diana.
Mm.
Elizabeth's real prickly about this.
Mhm.
And he says she did. And she wanted to keep her marriage. And Elizabeth's like, well, then why did it end? And he's like, because he left her. And Elizabeth's like, yeah, because her ex-husband, Andrew Parker Bowles, was tired of reading about the two of you banging in the papers.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I mean, they were banging.
they
Come
were
on.
absolutely banging. And the thing is, though, Andrew also was a serial cheater. Like, no one was
Yes.
happy here.
Right. No.
Charles says that. And Charles says Camilla has dealt with judgment without complaint, and she has been loyal to both Elizabeth and the crown, and she deserves praise, not just for that, but also for loving him and making happy the person next in line, which is surely in all of their interests.
This might be a hot take, incoming hot take. I
Okay.
don't hate Camilla. I never
I
did.
don't either.
Everybody's a victim here.
Mm-hmm.
Diana, even Charles, Camilla, Andrew Parker Bowles, all of them are a victim of two crotchety old white people sitting on a throne making a decision for them.
Mm-hmm. And he's
And
right. He should have asked her 30 years ago to marry.
yeah.
Like, that's who he should have been with. He
Yeah,
never
he should
wanted
have
to be
fought
with
harder
Diana.
for that.
He should have, but I also get why he didn't, because he couldn't.
And I also understand as a parent, you don't want to think that way because that would undo Will's and Harry.
Right.
And he
Sure.
needed to have them and they needed to be here and they were meant to,
Of
you know
course.
what I mean? He was meant to be their father. But I mean, it's such a shame. And what it did to Diana is so sad.
I
Like
know.
all of it is just so sad.
It's tragic. It is
And
absolutely tragic.
and should Charles have controlled himself? Sure.
Sure. But he
Should
was
Camilla have? Sure. But like,
in the
they
words,
did. It's not the way it happened.
I'm not going to say great, I'm going to say pretty terrible human being, Woody Allen. The heart wants what the heart wants.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And we all know what Woody Allen's heart wanted.
Right. A child. Anyway, they both see Philip outside with like a bunch of people going around this Land Rover, and Charles asks what he's doing, and she says he's planning his funeral.
This would
And
be
he
Timmy.
wants that
Timmy
old
would do
car to
some
be his
weird
hearse.
shit like this with the car.
Yeah.
He would be like, put me in my
Something.
Cybertruck. I don't know what he's doing. Yeah.
No. We can't let him have a Cybertruck.
Dude, he wants a Cybertruck.
Which one does he want, though?
The new one that's coming out.
He doesn't want the Tesla one, right?
Yes, the Tesla one.
Oh, Timmy.
Yes, I know. And he agrees that Elon Musk is terrible.
I mean, we own a Tesla, so, and
but
Todd's
he's
like,
like,
if we could afford to get rid of it, we would, but we can't, so we have it.
He's like, the engineering, they just
It's
have
amazing.
it down. You can't, you know what I mean?
It is really good.
Yeah.
The Cybertruck, though, is really ugly.
It's ugly. I agree.
It's real ugly.
I agree.
The
But
Rivian
he
is
has
much better
wanted
looking.
one from the minute they announced it. He has been collecting his pennies and waiting for this thing to come out, driving a $1,500 piece of shit truck while he waits for this Cybertruck.
Okay, good luck with that.
So I can't say no to it. It has to happen. I know.
So Charles says to Elizabeth, you always said you could not do this job without Papa by your side. He is your strength and stay. And he says, Camilla is my strength and my stay. And he couldn't do it without her. Elizabeth says she will reflect on it, take advice, and give him an answer soon. He thanks her and leaves.
By the way, speaking of Philip, did you hear for episode 8 or 9, I forget, the clip that I chose of Muhammad Al-Fayed calling Prince Philip a Nazi?
Yes.
He's a Nazi. Okay.
Oh boy. Okay. So now we have the first review draft of London Bridge, and this big like binder gets dropped in front of her, and she's like, are you kidding me with this? And they're like, don't worry, it'll get smaller as you note your preferences. And she said, my preference is to have a quiet 20-minute service in Scotland and be left alone.
Yeah.
That's
not going to happen.
But she knows that's not going to happen. And someone points out that she will, in all likelihood, be the longest standing reign in the history of the world.
Yep.
And they talk, I mean, we will never have a reign this long again.
No.
And it'll never happen. And they talk about the contingencies that need to be figured out. What happens if she dies abroad? What happened? Like, we have to figure out all of the things. And she says that she'll do her best to keep it local. I like that.
Yep.
And so they're like, and the first chapter is what happens if it happens on foreign territory. Let's turn to page 10. And now she's like, oh, Jesus Christ, I don't want to do any of this.
I'll try to keep it local.
I'll try to keep it local. Harry and Wills are now shooting cans and actually shooting their friend with an air gun. Harry is a dick.
How dare you?
In his portrayal here.
He's not going to fix your drink. So now you've just lost your bartender.
Oh, fuck. Okay, no.
And
Harry's
we all know number one rule is you be nice to the bartender.
That is true. No, Harry is a delight and a joy, and I want nothing more than for him to be happy. Actually, I do want nothing more than for him to be happy. And I think the real Harry is a delight and a joy.
Yes.
And they talk about this party that they're going to, and the theme is colonials and natives.
Oof.
Right. And Will is like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Could they have come up with anything less offensive? Because this is awful. Harry gives him a hard time and says, now you're such an undergraduate in uni. You would never have said this before. And he says, Harry's
basically accusing Wills of being woke.
Yes. Yes. That is what is happening here. And we see some people coming around the building outside, and they say they've gotten a call from the Queen's private secretary, and
Yep.
she wants to see them. And Harry goes, "It is never good when they come in packs." When a whole bunch of people show up for them, it is never good. And now we see Elizabeth walking into a room. We see them walking up the stairs, and it's a whole bunch of bishops in their magenta robes. And she walks in the room, and she's going to ask them what to do about this marriage to Charles and Camilla. So remember, folks, if people aren't super steeped in this history, Elizabeth is the head of the Church of England. The Church of England broke off from the Catholic Church, thanks to Henry VIII, because he wanted to get divorced. But yeah, we're still not in favor of divorce. It's very strange.
Right.
And
see, you can create a whole church around your divorce and they still won't accept it.
Exactly. And so she wants their counsel, and she says she would like to grant them permission. She would like to let Charles and Camilla marry.
She's on board here. She's like, I am 80 years old.
And I'm done fucking tired. This. Yeah. And I'm done fighting this relationship. It is happening. They are shacking up. They are living in sin. And one of them says, as the head of the Church of England, it's her right, but it won't be straightforward or easy. And while the church has softened on divorce, the bishops worry about the optics of what this will look like.
Yeah.
And Elizabeth says that she thinks that people have come around to Camilla and softened on her a bit. And one says that many still see Camilla as the reason for the breakdown of the royal marriage between Diana and Charles.
Yeah. People hated Camilla. My Gram hated Camilla. And you know what Camilla's greatest offense was in my Gram's eyes?
What?
She was ugly.
Oh.
She was ugly. Like, this is how internalized my Gram's misogyny was.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I don't think Camilla's an ugly woman at all.
I don't either.
She's just not Diana.
Right. It was in juxtaposition to Diana. Yes.
Right.
It was just so awful. Like, when you get women of that generation who treated other women, like, it's so bad. And you know where it's coming from. It's just.
I know. I feel like this generation now is much more girls than we've ever been.
Like, we talk about this a lot with weight. Like, if you're Gen Xer, chances are you had a mother who didn't do so great in the weight area of, talking to you about your body, talking to you about your weight. But that's what they grew up with. Like, they just kept perpetuating it. It wasn't their fault. You know what I mean? No, well, not always. Sometimes it was. Not always.
It's like cycles of abuse. It just keeps going, and if that's what you learn, that's what you do. And it takes a lot of work to break it.
Yep.
Thankfully, we're seeing that happen now. So the church says that they need to be satisfied that with a new marriage, they're not approving of infidelity, because everyone knows they were unfaithful, Charles and Camilla.
Right.
And one suggestion would make. One guy says, I'd be curious what the Archbishop of Canterbury thinks, because he is the religious head of the Church of England.
Yes.
And one suggests that what if we did like a civil marriage and then a church blessing?
Amanda, question.
Yeah.
What do they think is going to happen? Do they think if they're like, it's okay, they can get married, that there's just going to be people in the streets divorcing and banging
and fucking other people who aren't their spouse? Oh, no. I don't. I just
You're going to have some kind of like
shit.
Pandora's box opens and everybody's just, having an affair in the middle of the street. I don't know what they think is going to fucking happen.
I don't either.
Nobody pays attention.
No one cares.
No one cares.
But here we are. So they think they could do this, and that this would, send the right signal that we are allowing them to marry, but we are also making them be contrite for the horrible things they did, which is being in love with someone who isn't their spouse. And they said the service might include a prayer of penitence, asking everybody can ask for forgiveness for all the sins that they did.
Yeah.
Elizabeth believes that God delights in mercy, and whatever short-term risk is at hand is better than if she dies and the new king is living in sin as he ascends.
God forbid.
That's what she's more worried about. Because she knows full well Camilla's coming wherever Charles is, and she better get this thing legit before she
Yes.
kicks the bucket.
100%.
And then we go out. Harry and William are standing outside or sitting outside waiting for this. All of the bishops leave and they're all like, what the fuck? Why are we being called in after this conversation? What is happening here?
Yes.
And the queen walks out and she thanks them for coming and says she needs some air and asks if they would be cross going on a walk with her. I don't think if your granny is the Queen of England, you ever get to say no.
I know. What are they going to be like? Well, we never know what Harry's going to come up with.
That's true. He could be like, I got cocktails to make, Granny. I got things to do.
I do attend a mixer.
I have to go dress up like a Nazi. Oh, wait, no, that's coming next. And she says she would like to so they get to this little like gazebo type thing, but because it's on a royal property, it's, marble and it's not a gazebo you or I would come across in our regular wandering the world. And it's raining. And so they sit down and she says she would like to discuss their papa. And she asks how they would feel about Charles and Camilla being married.
This was such a kid thing because she brings this up and Harry's like, I knew it.
Right. I knew this is what we were going to talk about. And he asks why they can't just stay as they are. And Elizabeth says, the last time an unwed king came to the throne, it didn't end well. For those of us playing at home, that would be her uncle, King Edward VIII, who had to abdicate because of Wallace Simpson.
Who Graham also hated. Graham also hated Wallace Simpson.
Oh, did she? Okay.
Yes. Cool. Yeah. For somebody who never left Scranton, never left North Scranton, Graham had a lot of opinions. Yeah.
Did she hate Wallace Simpson because she was a divorcee who was like banging
I have no idea.
King, or because she was ugly in her mind?
Probably because she was loose. That was another thing.
I hate when people are loose.
Yeah. Guys, how am I not more fucked up?
And I love the fact that you say all of these fucked up things that your Graham believed, and you were like, she was my favorite person on the planet.
She was my favorite person on the planet, but this is fucked up. I was watching, what was I watching? Oh, Lalu. I was watching Key Rock and Brittany with Brittany's grandmother in my tub yesterday, sobbing my eyes out because I missed my Graham so much.
Oh my god.
So there are times where I'm like, God, I miss that woman. And there are other times I'm like, what the fuck? What was she saying?
It's not dissimilar to the times where you're like, Jenny would do something ridiculous, and then in your next breath, you're like, God, I love that bitch. Like,
Yes. Like I would, the other day, I forget what we were talking about, but I said I would beat her with something if I could get away with it. Oh, the John Benet Ramsey case. I said I'd beat her down at the golf club if no one was watching. Yes.
So Harry keeps trying to complain, and Elizabeth's like, I'm not worried about you. Will, what do you think?
Yeah. Real child. Listen.
And he says, obviously, they would both prefer to think of Papa with their mummy, Mummy. And anything else feels wrong, but this is the reality. And she does seem to make him happy. And having him happy and settled is good for us and ultimately good for. And as you said, he'll be king one day. And perhaps this will get him to shut up about it. Basically, he sees like, this is going to happen whether we want it to or not.
Yeah.
And she asks if that's a yes. And William says yes. And you can see Harry being like,
Harry is classic younger sib here. He's like, look at me, listen to me. I'm screaming no, please. But Will
just
is
like
just
you would have pretended to be possessed by a demonic presence if that would have gotten you more attention.
100%.
And Elizabeth says that I actually appreciate this. I hope this part is true, that Elizabeth did not want to give her blessing until they had given theirs. I want to believe that that's true.
I want to believe it's true, but I don't. But anyway, we'll live in that world.
Yeah, we'll live there. And we see Charles getting a call from Elizabeth, and she's going to give him the blessing.
He is all horned up. He is ready.
All horned up. And I don't want to think. I'm happy to think of Dominic.
I'm happy to think of Dominic West all horned up.
If he could be horned up for me, that would be great. And Harry says to William, he can't believe he just caved like that. And William's like, look, I'm a realist. And Harry says, no, you're
I'm not bartending like you. I'm not on the wacky tobacco like you are.
You are. I'm
a realist.
And he says he's just trying to be an adult, and he doesn't expect Harry to know what that feels like. Charles is elated and cries that he got the blessing. And Elizabeth sits down and you can see she's just like a little torn about this whole thing. Like,
Yeah.
I think she knows it's the right thing. I don't think she likes that it's the right thing, if
Right.
that makes sense.
Mhm.
And we see Charles run to find Camilla in a greenhouse, smoking up a storm.
Mhm.
And we can't hear them, but he gets down on one knee and proposes.
And then they bang right against the glass.
Pretty much.
In my version. Amy sluts up the crown.
Oh my god, wouldn't that be amazing if all of a sudden, like, the crown, like, all of a sudden we get
And they had, like, a real graphic sex scene.
With, like, the camera shot right on their waist, like, go into Pound Town. That would be amazing.
I think I need a little bit of that to see it.
So later that night, Elizabeth is praying before bed, and Philip finds her, and he asks how it was with the boys, so I guess he knew that she was gonna ask, and she says, "Fine." They supported the idea of marriage, slightly through gritted teeth. Harry's more gritted than William, and she says she worries about Harry, and Philip says they all do, and some time in the army should sort him out.
Mhm.
They all think Harry is like knocking over liquor stores and being ridiculous, when really he's just getting high with his friends.
Yeah, like, he's just
He's
a
just being a teenager.
normal teenager. Yeah.
And Philip asks if she's okay, and she says yes, but all this talk about her funeral is stirring things up, and uh but she doesn't want to talk about it.
No.
And he wishes her good night and leaves. I wonder if they ever sleep in the same if they had ever slept, like, when did they stop sleeping in the same room ever?
Well, we know that, right? From season blah, blah, blah?
Well, we saw it, but, like, I wonder when it really happened that they truly never slept in the same bed together.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know either.
I don't know.
And
I mean, I can get behind it, especially if you're running a country. You're like, "I need my fucking sleep. Get
right,
away
I'm
from me."
tired. And
Mhm.
you toss and turn and snore, and this is a queen size bed, and I'm
Yeah.
not doing it.
Yeah.
And do you think she would only sleep in a queen size bed if
Okay,
she would
okay,
sleep
you
in a
took it
king
right
size
out of
bed?
my mouth. I literally was just gonna say that.
Do you think she had to, like, by order somewhere sleep in
I
a
was
queen
just
size
gonna
bed?
say, do you think anything available in those kinds of sizes, she always has to get queen?
I know. Does she have to get the queen size pantyhose and the legs egg?
Probably, probably.
Remember when it was small, medium, and queen?
Yes, yes. Mhm.
Bless. And you see Elizabeth giving her dogs some table scraps, and if I could just watch her play with the dogs all day, I'd be
Mhm.
happy.
It's difficult for me because whenever her dogs appear on screen, my dogs go well, one of my
Oh,
dogs goes berserk.
berserk, I understand.
So it's hard for me.
And then we hear bagpipes, and I fucking love bagpipes so much. And Elizabeth brings in the bagpiper, and you can tell he's like, "Oh fuck, why am I here?
What have I done?
What have I done?
What have I wrought?
What have I
Yes.
brought on myself to do this?"
Mhm.
And she says she hopes that he knows everyone loves his beautiful music. And she tells him that they have been planning her funeral, and she wonders if there would be a good tune for the pipes. He says there are a number of songs for fallen soldiers, and she's like, "No, no, no. What do you think? What song would you play?" And he says, "I would play Sleep, Dearie Sleep."
Mhm.
And she asks him to play it for her, and he's like, "I mean, in here? Like, do you know how fucking loud bagpipes are?"
Mhm.
Like, I asked Todd if we could have bagpipes at our wedding, but he said it would be too loud.
Mm.
Meanie.
She's like,
And
"I'm the fucking queen. If I
right,
wanna play my music loud, I'm
I
gonna
play
play
my
it
music
loud."
loud.
Yeah.
This is a real banger we're about to have.
Mhm.
And so she starts playing the bagpipes, and the butlers start walking away and, like, closing all the doors because this is
Mhm.
loud.
Mhm.
As we were watching it, I just wanted to note Toby was really bothered by the bagpipes. He was sitting next to
Aw.
me as I was doing it. He was like, "What?
Your kitty cat?
Yes, do not like this
Mhm.
noise too much."
Mhm.
And it's interesting, like, people are, like, polishing chairs in, like, the throne room,
Mhm. Mhm.
and one woman starts singing the lyrics to "Sleep, Dearie Sleep," and they all
Yes.
sit. Like, everyone kinda takes this as a
It became
moment.
like a musical
It did,
moment. Mhm.
a little bit, and, um, Elizabeth's eyes just kinda well up with tears, and you could
Mhm.
tell she's like, "Yeah, that's what we're doing."
That's the one.
Now we go to Cotswold costumes. to prep for this offensive
Mr.
party.
Cotswell.
Cotswold.
Cotswold.
And Harry picks up the Nazi uniform, and we all know where this shit is going.
Okay, so I have to say that my little contrarian historian dude
Mm.
said that in Spare, which I did not read.
Yeah, I've been holding off to listen to it till we finish watching this.
Harry claims he really throws Wills under the bus on this one.
Oh, does
and
he?
Says Wills encouraged it. Wills and Kate encouraged it and thought it was funny and really gave him the A-OK. It's
not what they present here.
Yeah. Nope. Well, you think Peter Morgan's going to go against the Crown?
No, not at all. So he's trying this on. Kate suggests that he covers up the swastika. And William says that, I mean, Harry can wear this uniform, but no one's going to think Harry's a Nazi. Well, that backfires on everybody.
Yeah.
One of the other friends dresses as the Queen, comes out in full drag makeup, and William goes,
"Great,
because that's my grandmother." And we get to this party, and it is fucking ridiculous.
The party's ridiculous. Harry is not bartending at this party, I would like to say.
He is smoking and drinking and drinking and smoking.
Yep. He's consuming. He's dipping into his own stash.
Yes, he is. And let's see. His friend dressed as the Queen goes up and performs I Want to Break Free by Queen. I love Queen. I miss them.
Do you think the Queen can only listen to Queen?
No. Well, she can listen to Sleep, Dearie Sleep on bagpipes.
And Queen.
And Queen. That's it.
Bohemian Rhapsody on the bagpipes would be awesome.
I'm trying to imagine like how awful that would actually sound on bagpipes. Yep. That would not go well.
Guys, find that and send it to us.
If someone could find a rendition of Bohemian Rhapsody on the bagpipes,
we need it.
We'll get you a gold star. And of course, someone sees Harry at the party in the Nazi uniform, snaps some photos, and we all know what these are. We've all seen this. The next morning, Wills comes down, and the papers are laid out on like the table by the front door, and all of them are Harry and the swastika on the front page. And William's like, oh,
this is the world we live in now, guys. Gone are the days when we were in bars and we could do whatever the fuck we wanted and no one had a picture of it. Those days are gone. Hey everyone, stay tuned. Little Miss Recap will be right back after these words.
We flash to a super hungover Harry. His Queen friend is like asleep on the chair. And Elizabeth and Philip are looking at these papers too. They are disappointed. Charles is pissed. And we see Harry in the bathroom like, fuck. Like, I really fucked up this time. Then we see Elizabeth meeting with Tony Blair. And he's like, look, Harry's not a bad kid. This will blow over.
Not a Nazi. Come on.
Harry's not a Nazi.
Now, your husband, on the other hand.
Right. Elizabeth says, but this photo was taken 2 weeks before Holocaust Memorial Day.
Not great.
Not great. Blair says eventually people will forget. And she asks what advice he would give himself about Iraq.
Ooh.
Basically. And he says he's hoping the upcoming election will give him an exit strategy. He's starting to think this was a poor choice.
Yeah.
And Elizabeth remarks, exit strategies have been coming up a lot lately. Elizabeth's now we see her trying to get this projector working. Someone's trying to help her. So now we have Philip looking at projectors and a couple episodes later, Elizabeth. And it's really sweet. Eventually, she gets it going. First, she sees videos of her and Margaret as little kids with her parents. They're all playing with corgis. And she starts, like her eyes start welling up. And this really gets her. So then we see an older Elizabeth and Margaret riding horses. She watches movies of Philip and Charles playing.
Yeah, we get to see hottie Matt Smith again. On the beach with their kid, whatever.
I know. Playing in the sand, just having grabble time. She watches a film of her own father's funeral. And the filming of this is beautiful because she's right in front of the screen. So the projector's behind her.
Yes.
So some of it is on her back. You can see the outline of her.
She is like part of it.
Yeah, she starts,
which
like, touching the screen when it's her
she's like in
father.
yeah, she's like embedded in the memory. It's
Yeah.
really cool.
It was really powerful when she
Mhm,
touches it when it's her dad, like,
mhm.
I
Yeah,
miss them. She was very close to her father.
yeah.
She touches herself in Margaret.
Mhm,
She watches her own coronation,
mhm.
and then we get the, like, projector, like, because it's right
Yeah.
out of film, and the butlers find her asleep on the couch. And at first, you can tell they're, like, kind of like Margaret, like, every time she falls asleep, we're like, "Are we dead yet? What's happening here?"
Kinda like Robin Brown.
Mhm, exactly. Little we need a heat sensor on the couch. Philip finds Elizabeth at the stables. These stables had a very feel of, like, Winterfell to me,
Oh,
of,
yes,
like, horses
yes.
coming around and all
Yep,
this,
yep, yep.
and he asks why she wasn't at breakfast, and she said she wasn't hungry, and he's like, It's not like you. What's going on?
Mhm,
You eat
mhm.
breakfast every day." Philip asks or Elizabeth asks Philip how Harry is, and he says subdued, and his father has him mucking out the pig stalls as
Hmm,
punishment.
mhm. Now,
And
this historian dude did say that in Spare, Harry wrote that Charles was very angry about the Nazi uniform, but was
Mhm.
also very, like, in other words, he knew he was angry about it, but handled it very well and was very soft with him about it.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Mhm.
And honestly, if the worst thing he did was make him muck out some stalls, that's not so bad.
Yeah. Well, no, I think
Philip
they threw him in the army for this, right?
well, he was going there
Yeah.
anyway, but
Yeah.
this really Philip called the costume shop to give them hell. Not
Mhm.
about having the costume, not about renting it to Harry, but about the fact that it was historically inaccurate.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
That's the problem.
yep,
That's the problem,
yep,
clearly. And then he's also talking, he talked to Sandhurst, which is also where Dodi Fayed, remember, we put a pin in that. Both
yep,
William and Harry went there, as did Dodi Fayed.
yep.
Talked to Sandhurst, and this will not impact Harry starting officer training school, which is
Mhm.
good because Harry is basically unmoored due to his lack of quality parenting. This is where Philip's like, this falls solely on his father and his mother, and they
Yep.
sucked. And I want to be
Yeah.
like, his father is a way better. His Charles is a way better father than you were.
Yeah.
That ain't saying shit.
Yeah. I feel
I
like
was,
Charles was one of those kids that was, like, parentified and able to raise himself.
yeah, and
And
no one, and his parents didn't. His father in particular did not get him
no, not at
at
all. He
all.
got Anne. Anne was
Mm-hmm.
the one.
Mm-hmm. Elizabeth agrees, also bad parenting. Philip asks if she wants to discuss anything before he goes, especially about the funeral and what it has stirred up in her. And she's like, nope, I'm good. Don't want to
Mhm.
talk about it.
Mhm.
Elizabeth goes back to the barn, and you see someone come in and like throw water on the floor. And you're like, no one would really do that with the queen standing right there. And you hear a voice that says, "You coward. Why didn't you tell him what you were thinking since you first started working on your funeral?" That someone is the woman who played Elizabeth in the middle. This is Olivia Colman who's here. And she has been thinking about this since the Golden Jubilee, how exhausted she is by all of it, how ready she is for rest, and at the same time, how ready Charles is looking to take over. And she's she says the younger Elizabeth says that there's precedence for stepping down. Wilhelmina of Netherlands has recently stepped down, Charlotte of Luxembourg, and older Elizabeth is like, no, that's very different than us. These are bicycle monarchies and nothing like what we have going on here. And the younger Elizabeth says that she has been on the throne longer than any monarch. And older Elizabeth corrects her and says, Queen Victoria, still longer than me at this point. Eventually, Elizabeth does pass Queen Victoria. And younger Elizabeth says, well, how well did she do in the end? She was unwell and hidden on the Isle of Wight. And she says, you are almost 80, and that's 20 years past the retirement age of a woman. And the younger Elizabeth says there's no need to go on. Her loyalty has always been to the crown at the cost of being a good mother, and stepping down would be the right thing for her to do as both a royal and a mother. Then we see her just riding on the property, which, first of all, this 80-year-old woman is riding horses. Good for you,
Yeah,
girl.
good for her,
You
man.
get it.
I mean, I'm 46 and I can't get on a horse.
I wouldn't want to get on a horse.
I couldn't get on a
Horses
horse
scare
when I was
me.
26. Horses
Horses scare me.
terrify me.
Yeah. No,
They
I'm
know
not.
more than us.
They
No.
got those big eyes that look like they're
Mm-mm.
going to pop out at any
Mm-mm-mm.
moment. I'm
Nope.
not into it.
They look at me with those eyes like I know the universe and you
Right.
don't.
And I'm going to kill you.
Mhm.
by trampling you. They
Agreed.
are pretty, though,
They're
at a
beautiful,
distance.
but they're
At a
terrifying.
distance.
Mhm.
So now we find out that we have settled on a date for the wedding
Mhm.
for Charles and Camilla. It's the 9th of April at the Guildhall in Windsor. And they also feel, so people are telling this, given her role as the head of church, she should not go to the service. She can watch it
Mhm.
on TV like everyone else. And then she can join at the church service and at the reception.
So ridiculous, but
She
whatever.
asks if the prime minister and the leader of the opposition will be there, the archbishop, and she wonders if she'll be able to say a few words at the reception. I'm like,
Mhm.
you don't have to ask anyone's
No,
permission for
you just
basically anything.
say it,
Right.
girl.
And the secretary offers to write it for her, and she says no, she'll take care of it herself.
Mhm.
So now we see Harry and William and Charles fighting at dinner. They're talking about the uniform. Charles is begging the boys to stop bickering.
I feel seen by
I
Charles
bet you
here, where
do.
he's like, "Just fucking stop.
Right.
Don't ruin my fucking day.
Wedding. Right.
Can
Do
I
not ruin my
just
wedding tomorrow.
have a fucking minute?"
Right.
This is
Stop
me.
it.
Mhm.
And Charles is on the phone to Camilla and she asks how dinner was. And he's like, it was horrid. And to hear them be so awful to each other is terrible.
He's like, "Now I
Charles,
know why royals don't raise their own kids. Where are my
exactly.
servants? Get in here."
Right. Can we get someone else to do this? Because I'm not enjoying this. Charles want, Charles wonders if they will blame him for how they turned out. And she's like, well, yeah, you're responsible for it.
Of course they will.
And you're responsible for making it better. And once they get through tomorrow, everything will be fine.
I
And
mean, his
Camilla,
mother and father saw him for 15 minutes a day, and he still blames them.
right, exactly. There's no
I'm being
all children
sarcastic,
blame their
guys. I
parents.
understand that's why the problem
Yes,
happened.
exactly. And Camilla says that she's fine, with all this. She's excited. Her sister persuaded her to get a fake tan, and now she smells like a dog's blanket. And I know
Mm.
exactly what that smell is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he asks if she's having second thoughts and
Mm.
she's for everything that she's in for and the life that entails. And Charles tells Camilla that she's going to make a statement at the wedding or that the queen is going to make a statement at the wedding. No one knows what it will be about.
Mm.
Everyone's wondering. And Camilla tells him not to give it any further thought. Just
Mm-hmm.
think about your boys.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing else matters. By all of Peter Morgan's telling, Camilla is a phenomenal mother and stepmother.
Peter
I don't know if
Morgan
that's
must
actually
be
true.
related to Camilla. I
I
don't know
know.
how this is happening. I don't
I
know if
know.
it's true. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know.
And
You know
in
what?
this, okay, go
You
ahead.
know what I'm gonna liken her to? And I think about her a lot like I think about Yoko Ono. I
Okay.
know it sounds weird. Both complicated historical figures.
Correct.
Um, I always say about Yoko, a lot of people gave Yoko a lot of shit. Think about Yoko after John's murder. She has
Mhm.
always kept his legacy alive. She has
Mhm.
never done anything to like besmirch his legacy or his memory or like what has she done wrong? Nothing.
Nothing.
And I won't blame her for moving on and you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
she just never has. She's never, and I feel like Camilla's the same way, like really after Diana passed, okay? She should not have been sleeping with Charles while he was married to Diana.
Correct. But
But
once
that's
she
his fault
died,
too.
well,
Right.
at that point they were divorced, so really it doesn't
Right.
matter.
But like once he was divorced
Mhm.
from Diana, what has she really done wrong?
Right. Nothing.
I don't know.
Nothing.
Like nothing. I don't know. I just think we're just so hard on women, but
We
whatever.
are. Do you have a 1 or 2 word answer of what broke up the Beatles?
Paul McCartney.
Okay. Okay. One day we need to do a whole conversation on mic of just the breakup of the Beatles.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a lot of hard feelings about Paul McCartney.
You really hate Paul McCartney. I know.
Oh, people are gonna come for me in record waves. I'm sorry, guys.
I love Paul McCartney, so
I'm
it's
sorry.
okay.
I'm sorry.
So we see Harry and William outside. Harry brings Will a jacket and says dinner was weird. And they both hate how Charles overcompensates when
Mm.
things are getting weird.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes Harry sick. And William says a few years ago it would have pissed him off, but now he doesn't care.
Yeah.
And Harry says he heard Granny's making a speech and she's going to tell the family she's standing down. And William doesn't believe it. Harry says this is the gift he'd most want. He craves it, Charles. And Harry says if she did it, it means that William is next. And William the Fifth. And he's like, I'll be William the Fifth. He goes, better than William II, who was assassinated by his brother, whose name was also Harry.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
Harry says, don't worry, I'm not going to do that to you. He's
Yeah.
safe with me.
Yeah. Yet.
Yeah.
I
Oh. And we see the
would
wedding.
fuck with him so hard if that was me.
I
But
know.
anyway.
We see the wedding preparations around London.
Mm-hmm.
And Camilla's getting ready. I loved what she wore. I loved both of her dresses this day.
Yeah, she
I
was
loved
great.
her wedding dress and
Mm-hmm.
her reception dress. She was
Mm-hmm.
beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And
Agree.
William's getting ready. There's a photo of his parents on the mantle. And you could tell neither Harry nor William are feeling this. They're just like, fine, we'll go through this. They're taken to the Guildhall in a party bus.
Yeah. Yeah. And the contrarian historian, which I'm now calling him.
Yeah.
Because he hates the crown.
Okay.
Like the show. So
Okay.
he's always like very, he said this was actually true. They pulled up in a party bus.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then Charles and Camilla came in the Queen's Rolls Royce.
Yes.
And you see the Queen's Rolls Royce. So they're having wait, I just totally lost this. So we're going back to the younger Elizabeth talking to Queen Elizabeth.
Mm-hmm. Claire Foy?
Claire Foy. We have the youngest queen now.
Mm-hmm.
Asking her why she's doing this. And she says, Queen Elizabeth, her older queen says, we don't need an old king after old king after old king.
Mm-hmm.
And she reminds her of the oath that she took at her coronation. And she says, you are fit enough to ride a horse and drive. So you're fit enough to serve. Like, buckle up, lady. Get it together. You're not coming down.
Yeah. Cut the shit, basically.
Right. Claire Foy, young Elizabeth, says that the monarchy is who you are, not what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And if you step down, you will be symbolizing instability and impermanence, and also indicating the luxury of choice, which you cannot have if you claim the crown as your birthright. You can't, and I get this. You can't say I have to do this, but I can also quit doing it anytime I want to.
Yes. Yes.
Younger Elizabeth does not see her as old. She sees her as liberated and confident. Because older Elizabeth says Charles is in his prime. And she goes, you are in your prime. And you sometimes think that there's a difference between you and the rest of the family. And it comes naturally for you. And they just make a mess of it. Like, you know how to do this at your, like.
She was a good queen. If you look at like what queens need to do, she did it. She
was dutiful till the very end.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone else, it doesn't quite come naturally to. And she says, you've thought privately with good reason. And she says, younger Elizabeth says, this system is terrible to inflict on people. It's unfair and unkind, but you thrive in it. And the system thrives under you. So you shouldn't stay every day that you can. You cannot step down. Older Elizabeth asks younger Elizabeth about the life and the woman that she put aside to become queen. Young Elizabeth asks, what kind of question is that? For years, there has only been one of you. If you went looking for Elizabeth Windsor, she's gone, long gone. You buried her years ago.
Yeah.
Elizabeth is putting the finishing touches on her speech. Claire Foy disappears. Finishing touches on her speech. Philip comes to get her and asks about the speech she's about to make, and everyone has their knickers in a twist about it. And he asks if she wants to discuss it, and she's quite sure she does not.
Nope.
And now we're at the blessing service. Again, I said I loved Camilla's dress. And we see them repenting their sins. And you can see Charles is like super annoyed by this.
Oh, it's annoying.
It's stupid. Basically, it's to be like, sorry, we had an affair and we
sorry to who? Sorry to
God,
to everybody, to the country. I don't know. Whatever.
Elizabeth,
the only person they owe an apology to is Diana, and she's dead.
She's dead, exactly. And probably Andrew Parker Bowles, but he was also banging around.
And
too.
maybe the boys. And they haven't sat down and apologized to them. So
maybe. Elizabeth arrives at the party and her secretary tells her that they're ready for her and she has her speech ready to go. And he hands her a piece of paper. And you're like, what's this piece of paper? So she comes in, gets on the stage, and she starts with a joke about an introduction. Perhaps I need an introduction. I'm the mother of the groom.
She kills it at this speech.
She's really funny.
She fucking kills it. I mean, when she whips out this charm, I'm like, okay, all right.
And it's a singularly happy event to bring the country together. the national steeplechase. And she goes on and shares the results. And
Yeah.
she's like, in other news, there was a small family wedding in the Windsor area, but the police are keeping things in order. And she talks about the first king, Edward, the first king of Edward, the Dark Prince, and the parallels between their story and Charles and Camilla.
Mhm.
And she says to Charles that she knows that it hasn't been easy, and it is to his great credit that he has filled this vacuum with great success and charity. And then you can tell she like skips over a couple cards, and Harry and William are like,
So the contrarian historian, am
yes,
I getting that right? Does that
yes,
make sense?
yes.
Okay. He said there's no fucking way this happened
Okay.
because it's not her decision to just abdicate. She would have to have consulted her advisor. She would have to have talked to the prime minister. She would have to like it's the way he said it's a constitutional monarchy, I think he
Yes,
said,
it
and you
is.
can't just do this.
Yeah.
So there's no way that that would have happened with
I don't think so.
only her knowing it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then Elizabeth speaks to Camilla and thanks her for how difficult it must have been and how she's been the strength and stay for the Prince of Wales and as a member of this family. For her patience and her forbearance, she asks everyone to raise a glass to the young couple. Sweet.
Yes.
Harry and William are outside decorating the car with like the paint, just married.
Mhm.
Elizabeth comes out and William says it was a nice speech and he was surprised it was short and wondered if she left something out, and she has no idea what he's talking about. Elizabeth tells William, be kind to Harry. It is tougher to be number 2 than number 1. The
Mhm.
system protects number 1, and number 2 needs attention and care. She's
Yeah.
talking about Margaret.
Yes, she is. Yes, she is.
And they're doing the family photos. Philip is super cranky.
And she
through
could
this
be
whole thing.
talking about her father.
And her father, too, yeah.
He was number 2.
He was number 2 as well, yeah.
Mhm. Anyway, go on.
The
I'm
people
sorry.
she loved most in the world were number 2s.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Philip's super cranky. Elizabeth goes to they get all the photos done eventually.
Mhm.
Elizabeth goes to Windsor Chapel and she's praying, and that's where Philip finds her. And she says to him, here I still am, not gone, not
Mm-mm.
abdicating, still
Hanging
doing it.
in. Hanging in.
They talk about it being a good day. She's like, yeah, I had money on three of the 4 horses that won. So yeah, it's a good day. And he tells her that the speech was good and funny. And she's like, you say that like it's a surprise that I can be funny. And he says, not at all indicative of the torture she's been going through.
Mm.
And she says she will die in the role, and that's good because the days behind her are those behind, or he says, you will die in the role. Those behind you are not remotely ready for this.
He hates Charles.
He
Can we
hates
just talk about
Charles.
this?
He really hates his kid. He thinks his kid is such a loser.
Yeah, he's like, this piece of trash reading poetry and
Right.
thinking about things.
You know, he's probably like, oh, that foppish idiot.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
He's too sensitive.
Yeah.
Which, think about it. Charles is too sensitive
I
to Philip.
I know. I
It's
know.
nuts.
You know Philip has called Charles a pussy behind his back.
Oh,
You
course.
just know it.
Of course. He doesn't like him. And he's like, they're not ready. And she's like, I wasn't either. I was so young. And he's like, no, you were ready. You were born ready. But it
He's
really
not
won't
wrong
matter.
there. He's
No,
not
he's
wrong.
not wrong. He's not. But he's like, it actually really won't matter because we're going to both be married. And he like kicks the floor, like right here, or buried right here. We're going to be here. It doesn't matter what the fuck they all do. We'll be dead.
Let them fight it out amongst themselves.
And he says, we'll never hear the screams from the world as it goes burning from in here. He's really sure this is not going to go well. Thank God he died before Elizabeth.
I know.
Imagine if Philip had to see Charles be coronated.
I know.
Oh,
I know. He would have been like, pussy from the gallows.
Yeah, we suck. Oh my God, we could have gotten the Cody Brown cheering section to just come on in,
100%.
focus their ire on this for a minute.
Yep.
And get it done. And he says, the system doesn't make sense anymore for those outside it or even inside it. And both he and Elizabeth are grappling with their own mortality. They still both live almost another 20 years. And he says they're a dying breed. And the good news is when the temple falls, they will sleep, dearie, sleep. And he loves that it is her sole musical choice. And he's very her. And she says, yeah, the fact that your coffin is going to be pulled in an old Land Rover is very you.
Mhm.
And the bagpiper shows up on the balcony. Philip leaves, and then with Elizabeth alone in the chapel, the bagpiper shows up. This is all her imagination
Mhm.
and starts playing Sleep, Dearie Sleep. And I'm actually getting goosebumps as I'm talking about this. It was
Mhm.
it was
It was cool.
powerful. And she walks past her own casket in her mind. She sees her crown on it. And then young Army Elizabeth comes out and salutes her. And she begins to walk out, and behind her show up Elizabeth Coleman and Claire Foy.
Olivia Colman. Yeah,
Yeah, Olivia Coleman
I
and
got you.
Claire Foy. Thank you. And they're both dressed in black. And actually, I think Claire Foy was dressed in the outfit that she came home in after her father died. It
Oh,
looked very
maybe.
similar.
Okay.
And they begin to walk out, and it's interesting because they just kind of keep going back and forth between the focus.
Mhm.
The focus is on the two of them. It focuses back on her as she looks at each of them.
Mhm.
And I have a whole thought here that I put down, but we'll talk about it in a second. And then she walks out of the chapel, and it becomes this real long shot.
It's
And this
great
long
because she appears smaller and
and
smaller.
smaller. And then the door opens, and it's full of light. And she walks through it, and that's it. Here's something that I think is really interesting. Young Elizabeth was telling her she cannot step down. She
Mhm.
has to stay. This is her oath. Middle-aged Elizabeth is telling her to step down because of everything she's given up.
Mhm.
Young Elizabeth doesn't know everything that she will have to give
No,
up.
and middle-aged Elizabeth is tired.
Yes, she's
She
got
is a
kids.
middle-aged woman who
She's
wants to
tired.
sit on the couch and watch murder shows and take a bath at night.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Jesus.
But I just thought that was interesting. Like young Elizabeth doesn't know yet everything that older
Yeah.
Elizabeth will
Yeah.
have to give up.
Young Elizabeth is, like, full of piss and vinegar. Like,
Yep.
"Let's go.
Let's
Let's go."
go. Let's do this thing.
Mhm.
And that's the crown, my friends. That is the crown.
Yay! I
So
loved talking about this with you.
I did too. I
Yeah.
did too. So I did a couple of deep dives.
Okay.
One was Elizabeth ever going to abdicate?
Mhm.
0 indication to anybody on the planet
Yeah,
that she was
no,
going to
she
abdicate.
wasn't.
So this is just made up. We talk about how Harry and Prince William really felt about Camilla becoming queen, because that was really controversial. Would she just be princess? Like, was she? What role was she going to be? Was she ever going to be queen?
And she's
Um,
not, right?
she's queen consort.
Right.
'Cause she can't be queen. You
Mhm.
can really only be queen if you're born there's all these
Yeah.
rules of who
Yeah.
gets to be queen, who gets to be king, who gets to be queen consort,
Mhm.
because Philip was only ever prince consort.
Right.
He was
Right.
never king.
Yes.
Um, and basically there wasn't really any animosity by the
Mm-mm.
end. They were really into Camilla. They saw how happy they made their dad.
Mhm. Mhm.
They were fine with it.
Yeah.
All good. This comes from, again, a very serious literary magazine
Source.
called People.
Oh, people.
Uh,
Mhm.
and then we talked about Elizabeth. I looked into Elizabeth's death a little bit. The official cause of death for Elizabeth is old age.
Wow.
That's it.
Okay, they're
Just
putting
old
that on
age.
the certificates now.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what is theirs.
Alright.
And
Wouldn't that just be natural causes?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And it was interesting because they were all trying to figure out how to get Elizabeth, or how to get people to Balmoral
Mhm.
for her death without indicating to the world that this is coming.
I remember, yeah.
So
We
it
knew,
turns
though. We knew immediately.
we really, but like Camilla was already doing something in Scotland, so she was an easy one in. Charles went up. Harry and Meghan were actually in the country for something else. William gets ushered up there, as do Anne and Andrew and Edward,
Mhm.
her other children. Harry doesn't make it in time to say goodbye. She
Mm.
dies while he is flying from London to Balmoral
Mhm.
on a private plane.
Mhm.
They were
Well, if he
trying to
didn't stop and have 10 drinks in the
yeah,
airport
probably.
bar,
Yep.
maybe he woulda
Maybe
made
he
it.
had to make cocktails for people. He's a very busy bartender. But apparently they all thought like she had a couple more days and
Mhm.
then she just died in her sleep. She
That's
was
how it
old.
happens real
She
quick.
was old and tired.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I'm looking at the pictures, Camilla is in black. I mean, I was in black, but Harry and Meghan are there. Harry is not in the royal uniform, but he does have some of his medals because at this point he has stepped away from the monarchy.
Does he have the Nazi uniform on?
No, he does not. He has a regular suit on. But Charles, Anne, Edward, all in the royal uniform. Andrew not, because,
Yeah.
little Jeffrey Epstein situation
We know
there.
what he's doing.
We know what
Mhm.
he's doing.
Mhm.
He's disgusting.
Gross.
But yeah, it's interesting to look at the casket here is exactly how they decorated the casket in the thing. And it was really beautiful. It's a beautiful series. And like you said, I would be really, or like we've talked about, I'd be really happy if we went back and did.
I would love to.
I would
Here's
love to
my
do Victoria, actually.
here's my dream podcast.
Yeah.
My dream podcast. You and I are doing Sister Wives. That will
Yeah.
always continue.
Yeah, we're never stopping.
Steph and I are doing something maths. I'm not sure. Steph and I get to do Virgin River from the
All the
beginning.
time. And you and I do The Crown from the beginning?
Or Gilmore Girls.
Oh,
Because I've never
watched
seen
Gilmore
it.
Girls.
Never seen
I've
it.
watched like 2 episodes, and everyone is appalled that I haven't watched it.
Yeah, I've never watched it either. But Virgin River would be. Because we can make fun of that.
Yeah.
And you and I do The Crown.
Okay, I'm in.
And some ducks. Like, that would be amazing. That would be. If only I had a podcast. Okay.
Oh, wait.
All right, guys. This has been The Crown. Hope you enjoyed it. Let us know if you want to do more. Maybe if we hear it from enough people, we would do some other stuff. I think we should definitely do The Queen. Peter Morgan's movie.
I would love to do that. Yeah. No, let's totally do that.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then, let's totally do it.
All right. So thank you guys. Join our Facebook group, Backdoor Friends, if you haven't already. Sign up for our Little Miss Recap Extra feed, which is on Supercast. Oh, I do want to say something. When I'm reading my book on the $12 tier, if you're on Apple subscriptions, you can't do the $12 tier.
No.
I could only put one tier on there. So I put the $8 one.
Because that's the most popular one, right?
Yeah. So if you guys want that, you need to jump on Patreon or Supercast. I'm sorry. There's no other way I could do it.
And I have noticed a couple people in the Facebook group don't know how to upgrade themselves. If you're having trouble, let us know. We can point you. Yeah. Patreon doesn't make it easy.
Patreon makes nothing easy.
Nothing about Patreon is intuitive. They need a real UX person in a big way.
And I'm going to say this again. If you're joining up on Patreon as a free member,
you get upkiss.
You're getting nothing. So thank you for liking us enough to click the free button.
Right.
But I'm sorry. Do not rage at us when you can't access any of the content.
There's nothing there.
Yeah, there's nothing there. All right, guys. Thanks so much for listening. Follow us on Instagram. Leave us a review, please. And thank you so much. And we'll see you soon.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.